In this video we're looking at finding percentages of amounts, and we've got a problem here which is what is 20% of 640. Now before we tackle that we've got to think conceptually about what we know about percentages. And what percentages are is when we break a whole into 100 pieces. So if we've got all 100 pieces of that, we've got 100%. And to make things easy to start with, we've got 100 is our whole, so 100% equals 100. Now 50% is half of 100. So that's if we had half the total. So if our total is 100, 50% of it would be 50. And all we've done is divide that by 2. So to find 50%, we divide by 2. To find 10%, we do a similar thing. We want to find what 1/10 is. So we divide by 10, because 100 divided by 10 gives us 10. And in this case, 100 divided by 10 means that 10% is 10. And finally, if we want to find 1%, well, 100 divided by 100 gives us 1, so that's how we work out 1%, and in this case 100 divided by 1 is 1. Now in this problem we've got a slightly different problem. We've got 640 as our whole, but we can still apply the same ideas. So here we go, 100% this time is 640. Now you will need to practice your division by 10 and 100, and also 2 I suppose, if you want to know this. But first of all, if we want to work out half, we can do 100%, which is 640. Half that is 50%. So half of this, our total, will tell us what 50% is. So half of 640 is 320. So 50% is 320. Now to find out 10%, again we look at this. We did total divided by 10, 100 divided by 10. But in this case it's 640 divided by 10, and this is where those skills of dividing by 10 and 100 come in useful. Now I know that 640 divided by 10 is 64, so 10% is 64. And just for good practice, if you want to work out 1%, do the same thing, divide this total by 100, so we're going to get 6.4%, sorry 6.4. And that is 1%, so 1% is 6.4. Now you're probably thinking, well, that's no good to me because we want to find out 20%, so how do we work out 20%? Well, we know now that 10% is 64. So if we double that and get two 64s, we're going to get what 20% would be. So there's 10%, another 64 is another 10%, and 10% plus 10% is 20%. And just so happens 64 plus 64 is the same as doing 10% plus 10%, and that gives a total of 128. Now sometimes you get more complex problems like this. So what is 35% of 640? This bit might be a little bit confusing, so you might want to pause the video at times. I'm going to be going quite quickly, but if you need to pause it you can, and rewind bits and so on. The reason it's difficult is we need to know what 5% is, which can be a little bit tricky. But what we can do is something we did before, or something similar to we did before. So when we worked out 50%, we halved the 100%. So because half of 10% is 5%, we can do the same thing. We can halve whatever 10 is, what 10% was, and that would tell us what 5% is. If you know, half of 64 is 32, so 5% is 32. Now, we've got enough to know how to work this out. We need a 5% for the 5% of 35, and we need 3 lots of 10%, because 3 times 10% is 30%. So we're going to times this by 10. So there's 64, that's 10%. We times that by 3 to find out what 30% is. And I'll put that there so we know what 30% is going to be. And you need to use your short multiplication here, but the answer there is 192. So now we know 30% is 192, and we know 5% is 32. So if we add those together and do 192 plus 32, that will tell us our answer. Because 192 is 30%, 32 is 5%, and if we add those together, we get 224. So 35% of 640 is 224. There's a couple here for you to have a go at. First one, what is 20% of 280? Second one, what is 65% of 460? I put this on the side. It's a good thing to do. Just get used to working out 100%, 50%, 10%, 5%, and 1%. Maybe not the 1% for this, but these certainly will make it easy for you. If you want to if you want to pause the video now, then you can work it out and then look at the answers in just a moment. Okay, so your answers. First of all, here's the percentages. So 10% would be 28. We want to know 20%, so that's 28. Add 28. So very quickly, and 8 plus 8 is 6, and carry the 1. Sorry, 8 plus 8 is 16. Carry the 1 over, and 1 plus 2 is 5. So in that case, 20% of 280 is 56. This one, similar thing. This time we've got 65%. We could do 6 lots of 10%, but we might as well do 50%. So 230, and that is 50%. Add 10% to take us to 60, so that's 46. So that would give us 60%. We need 65, so add 5%, which is 23. And add that all up. 0 plus 6 plus 3 is 9. 3 plus 4 is 7, plus 2 is 9 as well. And add 2 is 299. So 65% of 460 is 299. I hope that helps.